It was 2 a.m., so as you can probably imagine, it was dark, silent. When it's dark, it's amazing how you can be so much more alert to sound. For example, footsteps on a pavement have a distinct echo that wouldn't do it if it was 2 p.m. Sounds become more conspicuous, to say the least. Anyways, it was 2 a.m., and I was walking home from my friend's party. I'm a female, by the way. Let's call her Jen. Jen lives about 10 to 15 minutes away from my place, and we live in a small village, so not a lot of creepy things happen while walking home. But while walking home at 2 a.m. is still pretty damn intimidating, especially for a 16-year-old girl with no credit on her mobile or no specific skills to defend herself. Nevertheless, I still walked by myself, figuring it was no big deal. By around 2:06, I was halfway home, and I was walking down this street, which is a sort of hill that leads down to a main road. As I was walking down, I stopped and noticed a person at the other side. This may sound predictable to scare you readers, but I shit you not, there was a person, and as an instinctive reaction, I stopped and looked. The person, possibly male, was standing at the other side of the street, with a hood up, not facing towards me but down the hill, with their head drooped towards the floor. At this point, I was a bit freaked out, but I didn't say a word. After a few seconds, some sort of vicious gloopy liquid fell from this person's mouth. It was too sour to be spit, and too gloopy to be sick. The only way I can describe it is tar. It just glooped down to the pavement. I was more confused than scared, but stayed completely still, continuing to stare at this guy. After whatever that was exited his mouth, he turned his head to look at me. This made my heart sink. I felt completely and utterly terrified. And initially, I thought, Jesus Christ, but I couldn't see his face. I wish I did, but I didn't, so the only way I could describe him to you is that he had a black hoodie on, jeans, and I'm not sure what footwear. He wasn't tall. I'd say he was about 5'8" or so, but it's still creepy as hell. After the guy turned back, I turned and walked in a fast pace, only to see the guy walking at his same pace across the road. After seeing this, I stopped, and he copied me, but didn't look over. I immediately thought, shit. I thought it was over. He was following me. My adrenaline kicked in, and as I ran, only to see the guy running beside me, I decided that I couldn't outrun him, so I stopped again. But this guy carried on running, right down the main road and turned, and I ran towards the road. I told my mom about this man. Well, I assume it's a man. And she concluded that he was lost and probably drunk. That seemed like a reasonable way to put it. I'm 19 now, and this memory still gives me the creeps to this day. I wonder whether it was blood dripping from that guy's mouth, and why he copied me, and then carried on running after I stopped. Or most confusingly, why he looked at me but never attacked, when he easily could have. I guess I don't want to know what would have happened if he did. But creepy guy across the road, let's never meet again. When we were kids and she fell scraping her knee, she would just giggle. "I'm gonna get a band-aid, a pink one," she said. When her first long-term boyfriend dumped her, she laughed and offered me her arm as we made our way home. "Guess this means we're the hottest single chicks in school again," she whispered gleefully into my ear, making me laugh too. When she had to go to the doctor for additional checkups, she was excited. "Maybe I'll have something totally unknown, and they'll be able to name it after me. How cool would that be?" The leukemia was hard on her, but she never complained. Even though she was in pain, sometimes I would cry upon seeing her all wired up, but she would always crack a joke to make me feel better. Even at the very end, when we could do nothing but cry, she still managed a small smile, stroking my cheek with her weak hand. "Don't worry," she said softly. "We'll meet in heaven. I know it." I'm not a particular religious person, but my sister made me believe in heaven, which is making this so much harder. You see, I've begun hearing my sister at night. She's sobbing, quietly at first, and then she lets out this lengthy, heart-wrenching wail. A sound of that kind somebody might make falling off a cliff or being dragged into the woods by some horror. I want to believe in heaven, I really do. But if heaven is real, somehow my sister did not make it. But now, 30,000 feet in the air, Ryan had time to think about other things, about his life, the pizza he had planned on ordering when he arrived home, the brothers and parents who would miss him, the woman he loved but would never see again, the children he adored but he could never hold again. The wind ripped past his face, blasting him with cold air, thin air. His breathing came hard, but he retained consciousness as he slowly pushed into thicker atmosphere. Ryan exploded through the first layer of clouds, the second now in view, 10,000 feet below. Tears slid out of his eyes, and he was overcome with emotion. Everything he had ever known, every day he had ever enjoyed, was soon going to be gone. All his thoughts, memories, and feelings would vanish within the next few minutes, forgotten by all but his family and closest friends within the next few months. In a single moment, all his hopes and dreams would be snatched away, and the screaming cheer of gravity dragged him closer to his death, eager to swallow and end his mind. The second layer of clouds was quickly approaching, and Ryan hatched an idea. His mind surprisingly calm, he slipped his cell phone out of his pocket, turning on its data connection. He could now access the internet. He quickly typed a goodbye, tightly clenching his phone, sending a message to all the social media he was subscribed to with apologies for all his wrongs, and thanks for all of his friends' rights. He wished everyone well in their lives, sent the post, and habitually returned his phone to his pocket. He burst through the second layer of clouds, and now the ground was in view, the streets just barely visible lines. Ryan shifted a sob as the ground quickly approached. There was nothing he could do but let the tremendous anxiety for death build in his mind. The farmlands spun and grew, now only a couple thousand feet below. Ryan pulled out his cell phone one last time, opening his text messages and sending one to his wife, quickly typing, "I love you," and pressing send. He watched the send bar slide over the top of the screen, and his heart froze when it stopped just before the end, as it infrequently did when his connection was poor. He begged whatever supernatural entity he may be about to meet to let this message go through, to tell his wife one last time he loved her, just so she could know that he thought of her particularly before his death, and not just to send a bland message to everyone via social media, which he suddenly now regretted. Ryan could now just make out a couple farms watching him plummet. He had 200 feet. The sending bar had still 50. Ryan screamed the single word, "Please," ripping from his mouth. The ground rushed to meet him, and he never saw if the message sent.